I'm Josh Christensen.
I'm Elizabeth Segran.
And this is Most Innovative Companies. On today's episode, Fast Company senior writer Ainsley Harris.
It's actually easier to make it snow currently with the technology we have than to make it rain.
Executive Vice President and Chief Merchandising Officer of Walmart, Latrice Watkins.
Everybody gets to contribute to us having low prices for customers, and that is who we are and what we believe.
And as always, keeping tabs.
This seems a little dystopian, right? Like, I acknowledge that.
But first, here's the download, the news you need to know this week in the world of business and innovation.
The Justice Department is investigating Fed Chair Jarome Powell over his testimony last June about the Federal Reserve's renovation of two buildings. President Trump claims the investigation had nothing to do with the White House's disagreements with the Fed in the past year over interest rates. But Powell, in an unprecedented move, published a written and video statement refuting the administration's stated reasoning and claiming that threatening an indictment was part of the continuous pressure from the White House.
Man, Jarome Powell in that video, you can really tell that he does not want to be making videos. Not a lot of riz to Jarome Powell. Just, I'll say that, but
I just feel bad for him. And he got Fed chairs are notoriously wonky and boring.
Technocrats.
Totally.
It's not what they do. They're
I know.
not.
He doesn't want to be an influencer.
He doesn't want to be a content creator. Anyways, I'd watch a Get Ready With Me daily with Jerome Powell. Get ready with me as I.
Here's my tie. It is the same one I wore yesterday.
And speaking of interest rates and inflation, on Tuesday, we got the latest CPI report that shows consumer prices increased 0.3% month over month and 2.7% from a year earlier, which is still higher than the Fed's target rate of 2%. If we look at specific categories, energy prices went down, but what drove prices higher was housing costs and food prices, which are up 0.7% compared to last month. So not the disastrous level that some economists were expecting from tariffs and the inflation level, but still not great.
It ain't
especially
good
for food prices.
Yeah, for sure.
It's weird.
Yeah, but it's also very obvious. I mean, every time I go grocery shopping, it's kind of absurd how much I'm spending now.
Yeah,
you know?
The Met economy is real.
Yeah. Meta is moving out of virtual reality and doubling down on AI and wearables. Around 10% of employees working on virtual reality products at Meta's Reality Labs division are going to be laid off, according to Bloomberg. Metaverse and VR headsets that Mark Zuckerberg has been excited about for years have not been as popular as Meta's smart Ray-Ban glasses, for example. So the company is going to reallocate its funds to that. This is also happening amid Meta's extraordinary chase after AI researchers and investing billions of dollars in AI. Just this Monday, Zuckerberg announced on Facebook that Meta is launching a top-level initiative called Meta Compute to develop superintelligence. So apparently the metaverse wasn't a thing.
Man, has there ever been, I know this point has been made many times, a more ill-fated rebrand than going all in on Meta?
On Meta!
Yeah.
That's what it's called now. And what was the metaverse supposed to be? Basically being inside a video game? I don't think anybody ever wanted that, right?
Yeah, I mean, there are obviously multiplayer sort of experiences, but the whole VR set of it, there's open world games, there's sort of multiplayer stuff like that, like Roblox and Fortnite and Minecraft and stuff like that people like, but this was not it. This was not the thing. And they renamed themselves Meta, which is just so funny.
It's so dumb. It's just reinforcing what a bad decision that was. But I really kind of I don't use Facebook. I don't think anybody uses Facebook anymore. Anybody in our circles. But I kind of feel like if they had stuck with the original concept of Facebook, I would still use it. Facebook from 15 years ago, where it was a feed, you were connected to your friends. I think there's a legitimate desire for that, and they could have monetized that.
I think there's just bits and pieces have just done what they used to do better, some of groups were a huge thing on Facebook.
Yeah.
And now people have, like, at least in our age groups, like Discord servers and stuff like that. And then Instagram's really taken over. My hot take is that the funniest move for Meta to do would be to spin off Facebook. Sell off Facebook and keep just Instagram and their other properties, which would just be the funniest move altogether.
Who would buy that enshittified piece of crap?
Perplexity, baby.
Yep,
Arvind Srinivas will come in and try to buy it.
Totally.
All right, next story. On Monday, thousands of nurses went on strike at major New York City hospitals. This follows a weekend of failed negotiations over contracts between New York State Nurses Association and hospitals like New York Presbyterian and Mount Sinai. The demands vary across the hospital systems, but main issues around staffing and workplace safety have really come to the forefront. Unions are also demanding limits on the use of AI. This is the second major nursing strike in the past 3 years. And
Mom Donnie was there.
Yeah.
Did you see that?
I did.
Love that guy. Shows up at every one of these events.
He does. Well, I mean, he has all this time since he said he's not going to parades like the other kids. Did you see that Curtis Lee was like, I'm going to be at all the parades. And Mom Donnie's like, I'm going to be a mayor. I don't have time to go to all the parades.
Yeah. Okay, but this is slightly different. But like at his press conference about moving into the Gracie Mansion, did you hear that the only thing that he said he would add to Gracie Mansion was bidets?
I mean, sure, that's some bougie shit.
Yeah, I know. That's awesome.
Yeah. Hell yeah, do it. Add some bidets. You know what?
And share it. And share it with all of the world.
This communist motherfucker adding bidets to Gracie Mansion.
Love it. All right. Saks Global Enterprises, owners of luxury brands like Saks Fifth Avenue, Bergdorf Goodman, and Neiman Marcus, filed for bankruptcy yesterday. The company faced headwinds from higher tariffs, inflation, and an inability to pay its debts. Saks Global will attempt to turn it around. At the same time they announced bankruptcy filings, they also announced they'd secured $1.75 billion in financing commitments as well as a new CEO.
Oof.
Well,
we thought luxury goods were sort of like
insulated.
Immune and insulated in a K-shaped economy, but it doesn't sound like it. Although I think there's a confluence of factors here. I'm sure we'll learn more. But no one's safe.
But like, where are we gonna go now to go buy fancy stuff?
Oh, well, I wouldn't know.
Okay.
I'm a t-shirt and jeans sort of guy.
Kind of guy, yeah. I mean, this is a problem. I don't know what we're gonna do now.
Nordstrom's is as fancy as I get. Well, Nordstrom's rack.
Okay, all right.
And finally, Paramount is intensifying its hostile takeover bid of Warner Brothers Discovery. We've been covering this for weeks now, the back and forth of this whole thing. This week, Paramount announced it's filed a lawsuit against Warner Brothers to get them to disclose financial details behind their decision to favor Netflix deal over Paramount's offer. The letter to the investors also said Paramount plans to nominate a slate of directors ahead of Warner Brothers' annual shareholder meeting and propose an amendment to the bylaws to require Warner Brothers Discovery shareholders to approve any separation of the TV networks. As a reminder, Netflix's deal involves buying the streaming and studio businesses while leaving out the cable TV arm.
Oh my gosh, what a mess.
It's
like, who can keep this straight? Like, what is going on?
Man, just David Ellison's so thirsty for Warner Brothers Discovery, just like wants that property. And Warner Brothers Discovery keeps rebuffing them. But if I had to place money on it, I don't think this gets resolved anytime soon necessarily, but Netflix ends up coming out with the company, I would guess. It's just...
You think so?
The board has been pretty firm with Warner Brothers Discovery about who they want to sell to. So anything could happen.
So you're putting your money on that? All right.
I'd put my money on Netflix.
Check back in with us in a few months.
Go on Kalshi, put on your bet. And that's the news you need to know today. Liz, I think my cold's somehow getting worse. I think I need to talk about this on the podcast because everyone can hear my voice at this point.
Yeah. It's weird though. Like, you shouldn't be going backwards, Josh.
I know. You're going to hear our next segment with Ainsley. We recorded yesterday, and I sound much better in that.
You're less congested. Maybe it moved to your nose, your upper.
I don't know. It's going to move to my brain eventually. I can't do this. Well, I wanted to also welcome you to your first episode as our guest co-host.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks so much for agreeing to come on and be part of our rotation.
This is really fun.
Yeah. So we heard Kristen.
Yeah, and I get to see everything that happens behind the scenes, and it's a complex operation over here.
Oh, man, duct tape and string. It's That's it. We're not a glamorous organization. You're sitting, I'm home because I have this cold, but you're sitting in our studio in New York, and you can see we have a really lovely set, but if you pan out slightly, you see the literal rough edges of this set.
I mean, it looks like you did put these bookshelves together with actual duct tape, but you can't see that from the video, so that's what matters.
Well, fun story.
It looks fancy.
I did drop
did you
one
put
of
the
the
duct tape on?
bookcases.
Oh, that's what that
so
hole
I
is about.
did need to fix it with some tape.
Nice.
It's great. We work in media. We're a medium-sized company. We're not spending high dollars on our sets. I built this myself. That's behind
Scrappy.
you. So
Scrappy is what we are.
If you're listening to this and you want to see the set that I built, you're going to need to tune into the YouTube version of our podcast and to check out what I built, as well as the content,
Yeah, beautiful.
Oh, God. Well, anyways, let's get into our show. Today, we're going to make it rain. I've been waiting to say that this whole time before going into this segment.
And now you can, because that's literally the name of the company.
It is. A California startup called Rainmaker has set out to revolutionize a decades-old technology called cloud seeding to solve problems like drought. Fast Company senior writer Ainsley Harris got an insider's look at how founder Augustus Dorico, which is just an incredible name,
Amazing,
and his team try to make it rain, and joined Liz and I to tell us all about it.
I'm really excited about people hearing this one because Augustus is a really interesting character. The company is interesting too, but Augustus is kind of a wild and interesting figure.
Oh, yeah, fascinating. I think one of our specialties is oddball founders at Fast
Yeah,
Company.
we love it.
All right, here's that segment with Ainsley. Hey, Ainsley, welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
So this is a pretty extensive story. I want to start at square one because I think there's something we need to get out of the way, at least for my sake. What is cloud seeding? Let's start there.
Yeah, it's a great place to start because it's obviously not a super common practice yet here in the US. And so people may have heard of it here or there, but probably it's not something happening in your backyard right now. So cloud seeding has been around for decades, but in a pretty rudimentary form. People realized that you could sort of encourage the right kind of ice crystals to form that eventually become precipitation if you put a material like silver iodide, which is these tiny little particles into clouds, essentially. You fly a plane up, you used to just essentially sort of dump the silver iodide out of the plane and hope for the best, hope and pray that you might get some more rain. It was part science, but also a little bit of a craft, I guess. There wasn't a lot of evidence tied to exactly how effective each mission was. So for a while, it had fallen out of favor. People hadn't entirely abandoned it, but, I think a lot of the sort of hope that it was initially tied to it had died down until this company, Rainmaker, came along.
But why does one need to do cloud seeding? What's the point of cloud seeding?
Cloud seeding originally was sort of piloted in agricultural areas, places where there might be drought, you're not getting enough rain. And recently it's also been, in really arid climates where there's essentially no rain at all. It's also become popular in China as a way to sort of control the weather more broadly, not just for agricultural reasons, but also to sort of combat pollution and some of the effects of pollution. And more recently, we're seeing it become kind of popular in the context of recreation, specifically skiing. So it's actually easier to make it snow currently with the technology we have than to make it rain. But yeah, the core value prop has typically historically been tied to agriculture.
So tell me about Rainmaker. What do they make and how successful have they been?
Yeah, so Rainmaker is a company based in El Segundo, California, part of this sort of Gundo wave of companies doing sort of science and hardware type startups in the US. And it was started by a guy named Augustus Dorico. He is a former Thiel Fellow. He is a former Berkeley student. He was a physics major. He dropped out. And during the pandemic, he kind of got into water. Essentially, he became, as has been quoted, a big water guy. He was working.
That sounds like such like a gym bro thing to say, like really meathead gym bro.
Yeah. I'm just so into water. Just so into it.
Yeah. Water is cool, dude. This is, for all the water bros out there listening, he's like the OG. And he got into it through, actually, he was working as like a personal trainer at a gym in Texas during the pandemic. Classes are remote. He moves to Texas. He meets this guy who essentially like was in the water business, starts working with him, and eventually ended up at a conference where he heard scientists talk about this research paper that had been published several years prior called Snowy. And Snowy was this attempt to sort of prove the effectiveness of cloud seeding. These researchers realized that they could try to fly in a sort of zigzag pattern, essentially to try to like create the sort of artificial lines that, snow doesn't fall in zigzags, right? So you can find a way to sort of isolate the effects of the precipitation that you've created versus just the fact that the cloud might be precipitating anyway. You can start to really attribute what you're doing and create that sort of attribution that you need to really generate more investment and interest. And they did that. They did that pretty effectively. And Augustus heard a presentation that referenced this paper, got really interested, and sort of made the connection to the tech world in that he realized that, well, we don't even need to fly planes anymore. We can fly drones. And, I think it was a really interesting insight. And also, but I think it's ended up being a lot harder than he expected, perhaps. Turns out that flying drones into incredibly icy, windy conditions is really difficult to do.
Yeah, you mentioned like a number of prototypes that they had until they got to the Elijah drone that they're currently flying now. How many was it?
Several dozen, I think. I mean, yeah, they've trashed so many drones, drone after drone. And they've also, used some off-the-shelf drones. But really what has made the company viable is, they went through this sort of period in the wilderness where, they're just crashing drone after drone. And the problem is until they really can get a drone in the air, they can't actually go to customers, right? And they can't even start collecting data. So they had some sort of pilots going, but really the kind of critical breakthrough for them was that they developed these de-icing systems. And they created a way for the drone to sort of de-ice itself while it's in the air in a sort of clever mechanism that doesn't require a lot of energy. It allowed them to finally start to really make this work and put the pieces together and start collecting data, start running operations. And so that's where they are at right now, is they're at this place where, they are ready to go. This season is sort of the testing season for them because, it's winter. Winter is the prime cloud seeding time because, as I said, it's easier to make it snow than make it rain, at least currently. A lot of times when it's warm on the ground, rain essentially evaporates sort of before it hits the ground. So that's one of the problems. There are many also problems with trying to sort of make water droplets. It's harder to do with the current seeding technology that we have. So anyway, so they are in Utah right now. And the story that I wrote really centers on the operations that they have running in Salt Lake City and in the mountains around Salt Lake City, where they are trying to save the Great Salt Lake. And that is the big challenge in front of them right now. They have some other programs running in California and elsewhere, but that is the showcase project for them. If they can make a meaningful contribution to the water levels in the Great Salt Lake, that would really, I think, get people's attention. And it would also have a really meaningful impact on that community. There's obviously a lot of recreation and skiing around there and, need for snowpack and all that kind of thing. But also the lake itself, while it is not really used for recreation, it has dropped to a level so low that it actually poses a risk to the whole valley surrounding the Great Salt Lake. Because it's a terminal lake, a lot of rivers run into the Great Salt Lake. Those rivers on their way there pick up lots of different metals, pollutants. All that ends up in the base of the lake. And when the water levels drop and that lake bed gets exposed, it's so dry there. It's essentially a desert climate. All those chemicals get pulled into the air when it's windy. And all of those chemicals essentially make the air, really dangerous to people who live in the Great Salt Lake Valley. So that can become a catastrophic problem if the lake continues to fall. So, the stakes here, I think, feel really high for the people that they're working with there. And, I think for Augustus, definitely if you spend time with him, he takes what he's doing really seriously. And so for him, I think the stakes feel very high as well.
Well, I really want to learn more about this character. So reading your story, he sounds really interesting, has some pretty conservative qualities. He's constantly talking about God. I don't know where the term Elijah came from, but I assume that it's like a biblical reference. Yeah, so he's 25 years old. Then, after this conservative childhood, he goes to UC Berkeley, my alma mater, which is like so progressive. Can you describe him? What was it like to talk to him? What's his vibe?
I think he's someone who is really hard to sort of pin down in some ways. And in other ways, has become this real symbol of, or a lot of people who have kind of tried to turn him into a symbol of how beliefs in the tech world in Silicon Valley are changing. And to some extent, I think those characterizations are true. And in other ways, I think he is sort of turned into a poster child in ways that don't really make sense. So he is a Christian. He was not raised a Christian. He converted when he was in college, essentially. And, he describes that as, him really turning away from a lifestyle that I think involved a lot of partying, a lot of college, typical college enjoyment. He really turned his back on that. And I think has not only, tried to sort of change how he lives, but also that moment, I think, became a moment when he started to want to really find purpose in his life in a different kind of way. So he is part of this community in the Gundo where there are actually a lot of Christian founders. And, I think faith has become, and faith, God, America, some of these sort of like very traditional ideas are really central to the culture there and how people are thinking about their purpose and what they're building. I think his generation, I think they look around and see a lot of their peers seeming kind of lost. And so I think they see part of their purpose is offering people a way forward and a sense of purpose and a sense of patriotism and faith and family. And, I think there are some pieces of that have like a darker side. Mm-hmm. And, one of the churches that has been popular in the Gundo is tied to a guy named Doug Wilson, who is pretty well known for his Christian nationalist beliefs. And some of those, go pretty far into, he was recently interviewed in the New York Times, advocating that we should be stoning adulterers, just like they did in the old days. So
cool.
Some stuff that's like, I would say pretty out there. And, so I think this is the world Augustus lives in. And, he wanted, I think, to make clear in our time together that, some of that is true to him and some of that is not. He does not actually consider himself a member of that church, for example, even though he's been tied to it in past reporting. And one thing he also wanted to make, I think, very clear is that he's not a white supremacist or a Christian nationalist, despite the fact that he, in college also sort of, I think, had a flirtation with the ideology of Nick Fuentes and sought to start a chapter of Nick Fuentes' organization at Berkeley.
And he was also part of Charlie Kirk's Turning Point organization too, wasn't he?
Yes. Yeah, no, he was that as well. And then sort of turned his back on it, moved closer to Nick Fuentes' ideology. I should be clear. He says that he really...
It was like the Christian revivalism of Nick Fuentes' ideology. And it's like people contain multitudes. It's there's a whole topic for another podcast about the kind of slippery slopes of certain sects of, religious fundamentalism to these nationalist beliefs that we could unpack it for a couple hours here. But yeah, he had a very interesting sort of approach to his personal beliefs during this time period in college, it seems like.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think he's someone who's been really searching and, to his credit, I think it's really easy to sort of walk away with a certain impression if you, see some of these old tweets that date to his college days that we came across, where he was making very clear his interest in starting this chapter and, clearly had some pretty strong opinions about some of the Black Lives Matter protests that were happening at the time and some of the things that were happening in the LA area where he was at the time. And, I think the thing that I was really struck by is how, how he seems to have matured.
He's just 25. I mean, like,
Yes,
what were
yeah.
we doing when we were 25? We were having
Totally.
existential crises, right? Dating all the wrong people. All of that stuff is happening in your 20s. But he's doing it at the center of this company that is it could be quite powerful, right? Like in terms of the way that it could impact microclimates and things like that. I mean, why do you think that this company has been so successful, and who is entrusting him with the $31 million in funding and all of this power?
Part of the reason that they are entrusted is that they acquired a weather modification company that was based in the Utah area and are sort of piggybacking on some of their permits to be able to operate in Utah. But they also, in that, acquired a lot of sort of expertise and capacity, people who have been doing this for a long time, the more old-fashioned way. But, there is, I think, this tension in what they're doing where he has this very big vision for the scale at which he wants to operate. We're talking like biblical scale, right? And at the same time, that is the very thing that people do fear about cloud seeding. Mm-hmm. And we saw that come out with the July 4th floods in Texas that were obviously so devastating. And, following those floods, Rainmaker had been operating not right in that neighborhood, but in Texas in the days leading up to the floods. And, they don't operate at anywhere near the scale that would generate rain of the order that we saw in that flooding. Yeah, it was sort of like different log charts of scale here. But they, of course, got sort of pulled through the mud on it, first on X, and then all these theories started to sort of spiral. And I think before they knew it, this has been, cloud seeding has been of interest to certain conspiracy theorists, Alex Jones and others, for years, particularly if you're someone who thinks that contrails are a government conspiracy. Cloud seeding is sort of like this gift to you, where it's like exactly all your fears realized.
It's just tailor-made for conspiracy theory. You're controlling the weather.
You're literally releasing chemicals into the air. Yeah, controlling the weather. It's like, it is all the things. So I mean, Rainmaker has now been banned in some states because these conspiracy theories are so prevalent and so much a part of some of the dialogue on the right, on the internet, that lawmakers proposed legislation in Florida, Tennessee, and over a dozen other states to ban weather modification.
I mean, some of these conspiracy theories are wild, but I think that maybe part of the reason that they have taken on is that there are some questions, right, about this technology. And for me, I'd love to know what some of the risks are. And if you are seeding rain to particular parts of the country, particular areas, is that somehow taking water or rain away from other area? I mean, is there like an unlimited amount of rain that you can produce, or are you effectively moving water from one area to another?
My understanding is that only a very small percentage of the sort of available precipitation in a cloud actually turns into precipitation that comes down to the ground. So typically what you're doing is not sort of like exhausting a cloud so that the next county over doesn't get any rain. You're just sort of like juicing the cloud a little bit more and getting more out of it. And that's sort of typically how the process unfolds. So there's not, some of the fears around, taking rain from other people. I mean, obviously there's like sort of a finite supply of water on the planet.
Closed system.
Though if ice continues to melt, perhaps that number will increase. But I think obviously there are a lot of crazy weather events happening right now. So there are guidelines around when you should be doing this, sometimes like imposed by regulators. So there is like a permitting process at the state level. If there was a hurricane on the way, like you would not be able to operate in those conditions, and you wouldn't want to either, right? So in theory, you can have controls that make this safe. And also the scale at which people are releasing silver iodide at the moment is relatively small. Already, though, Augustus has his chief science officer working on alternatives to silver iodide due to concerns about the fact that at a certain point, you don't want that much silver iodide falling to the ground. Like if you truly were to scale what they're doing, 1,000x and try to solve drought in Colorado or something like that, that would potentially be like an unwelcome amount of silver iodide in the soil and around people on the ground. So, I think they are looking at organic options and ways that you might be able to sort of just use a different particle, essentially. But that is all still pretty speculative, though I will say that from what I've read, China is experimenting pretty aggressively as well. And they do operate at a pretty insane scale with some of their operations in cloud seeding.
So last question. So they've raised a little bit of funding, around 31 million. Who have they raised from to this point?
They raised from Chris Sacca's Lower Carbon and some other investors as well. I think a lot of their funding at this point, is actually folks who sometimes do like Lower Carbon, obviously like focused on the planet. So, I think he's very much part of this world in the Gundo that's very much about industrialization and America. But some of their investors also come from other walks of life.
So what's the scale plan for them? We've alluded to it throughout. Big dreams, big plans. They're early stage right now. What is Augustus's big grand plan for scaling this business?
I think it's global in nature. So, the customers here are, state governments or agricultural associations. And so, that's promising, but also there are potential customers in the Middle East that I think are really interesting for them. Cloud seeding has been done with planes there for a while in some places. It's, to my understanding, a lot more difficult because it is an arid climate and what you're starting from is really different. And you end up with this rain that doesn't actually hit the ground. And so, it'll be really interesting to see what happens there. But they also did some pilot programs in South America, in some agricultural regions there. So essentially anywhere you can think of in the world that's short on water, there's in theory a customer there. And increasingly, I think Augustus will tell you that they have to move fast because China is going after those customers too.
Well, thanks so much, Ainsley. You're going to stick around for keeping tabs. But first, we're going to take a quick break, followed by Liz's interview with Walmart's Latrice Watkins. Historically, Walmart has been the primary shopping destination for lower-income families, often in smaller towns and rural parts of the U.S. But over the past few years, with inflation and a strained economy, Walmart has drawn a more affluent group of customers. Last year, Walmart said even though they have customers on the whole spectrum of income, higher-income families have been driving their recent growth. Liz talked to Executive Vice President and Chief Merchandising Officer Latrice Watkins about all things Walmart, the mission from the beginning, Walmart's evolution over the years, and how the company is attracting new group of customers like higher earners and Gen Z. And as a quick note, we did record this in December, just before the holiday break, so there is some talk about holiday shopping, so don't mind that. Here's that conversation.
Hi, Latrice. I'm so happy to have you here on the show.
Hi, Liz. Thank you for having me. It's exciting to be with you, to see you this time.
I know we get to see each other and have a nice conversation today. You're one of the most powerful people in the world of retail, but I think that for our listeners who aren't familiar, I'd love for you to explain a little bit what it means to be Walmart's chief merchant. What does that role entail?
Well, first off, it's the best job there is. And what it means is my team and I get to choose all the items that customers experience at Walmart. We consider ourselves their personal shoppers. And so we love to curate an assortment. We love to make sure that we have the items customers want, the brands they want at great prices. And we work with suppliers, manufacturers, sellers to make sure that we can have all of those things available to them however they want to shop at Walmart.
From an earlier conversation we have, you talked about how you sort of knew you were destined for this role from the time you were very little. So tell me a little bit about your aspirations as a little girl and then how you ascended into the role of chief merchant. And what was that journey like?
Well, I can't say I had that much foresight, but what I can tell you is I loved retail. I'm an only child, so I spent a lot of time alone with my make-believe customers with a calculator as a cash register, typing on the buttons really, really fast. And I just love the idea of serving people. And I grew up in a town that had a Walmart. And so it was where I went to shop. It was kind of that in a couple of grocery stores. So I learned to love retail, not knowing that that's what it was. I went to college and studied political science. I went to law school. So I didn't necessarily have the idea that I would be in retail, but maybe it was in my heart from the beginning. At the same time, I think what it says about Walmart is you can do and be anything here. I started in real estate as an intern and spent 10 years in real estate before I ever got into the core of the business and merchandising. And so I've had the opportunity to do a lot of things. This is the best job there is. I have the best people in retail, and it is a joy to get to serve customers the way we do.
Yeah, and I think what really distinguishes Walmart from many other retailers is that the brand has had this very strong commitment from the beginning to keep prices as low as possible. And when Sam Walton founded Walmart in 1962, that was actually kind of a radical idea, because I think most retailers at the time were focused on maximizing margins and profit. But his vision from the beginning was to sell products as inexpensively as possible and then sell it at volume, right? And that was kind of a radical idea. It seems like that continues to be the driving force at Walmart. Would you agree with that?
I'd say Mr. Sam gave us our purpose to save people money so they could live better. So it's at the core of who we've been and who we'll always be. And I think it started in small towns, but today we're within 10 miles of 90% of America. And so not necessarily just small town anymore, but we exist to serve customers.
Yeah, and I mean, we're at a time when consumers are feeling the pinch of inflation, and many people are very concerned about how they're going to get through the holidays, for instance. And while many retailers are struggling right now, Walmart is kind of bucking that trend. And its most recent financial results in Q3, they were very strong. So I'd love to hear what's going on here. Why is it that while consumers are sort of paring back from a lot of other retailers, they're flocking to Walmart? What do you think is going on?
I think it's a few things. I think I'd start with we are focused on the customer. We start our conversations with the customer. We start the conversations with what's important to them. What are they thinking about? How can we serve them? And we do that across a number of things. We think about assortment, of course. So having what customers want is a really critical part of being a place that they want to shop. And so when we think about our portfolio, our merchants are working every day to make sure that we can have the assortment that customers want. I'd say the second thing is we really focus on price. And we focus on price in a way that thinks about the vast number of customers that we serve, meaning we'll have opening price point, we'll have good, better, and best assortment, and we'll give customers the opportunity to buy the things they want. And what we see them doing is making choices across our portfolio. And because we have such a broad portfolio, they have the opportunity to get things that they need, want, and love across our assortment at great prices. And then the third thing I'd say is we really want to have an experience that customers love. So you've seen us remodel stores. You've also seen us update, change, and have a very interactive Walmart.com site and app. And so that experience for customers of having ease of shopping is important to us. In addition to, customers seem to want things fast. And so we have the opportunity to make sure that we're doing everything we can to give customers the assortment at great prices with an experience that lets them see all of Walmart that they want to see and get the packages that they want to either come pick up from us or have delivered to them really fast.
Yeah, I want to really go into all of those different components, but let's just start with price. You know, Walmart's prices are generally 10 to 25% lower than competitors. So it makes a lot of sense that people who are budget strapped right now are going to really think of Walmart as the place to go. But how do you get at those prices? I had the pleasure of talking to Glenn Powell, who recently launched a line of condiments at Walmart. And he was talking about how, price was really important to him too, right? That trying to get products that were at the right price for Walmart customers was like a big part of building out the business. So tell me a little bit about that. How do you and your merchant team get to these low prices? What is it like working with suppliers?
Well, we've got a long history of working with suppliers and having great relationships with them. I think it's clear to suppliers what our goal is to help customers save money. And so we look at every part of the business. We look at packaging. We look at the quantities that we're distributing, pack sizes. We look at everything to try to take costs out. In addition to that, I think what's special about Walmart is everybody here wants customers to get the lowest price possible. And so it means we have to manage our costs. We have to be more efficient. And so if it means how do you think about what you spend in your teams and how do we think about how we take cost out of our system, everybody gets to contribute to us having low prices for customers. And that is who we are and what we believe.
So historically, Walmart has been the primary retailer for low-income families, especially in rural parts of the country. But over the last couple of quarters, we've seen that the company is growing market share with Americans whose household incomes is more than $100,000 and even $200,000, which is kind of an interesting and remarkable shift that's been happening. Part of that, it seems like, is the fact that there are all these products now that these kind of higher income consumers might be looking for. So can we talk a little bit about how you're making the in-store experience and the online experience more palatable to higher income consumers through your product assortment?
If we see gaps in a set of customers shopping us in a particular category, we evaluate the reasons why. We don't just assume people are choosing not to. We say it's our responsibility to give people a reason to shop at Walmart. That's assortment and price and experience, and increasingly, convenience is really important. And so what we've done is say, what part of the portfolio is not attracting a broad base of customers? And then we make adjustments to our assortment. An example, in our fashion business, we could see that there was a bulk of customers whose closets we were not getting. And so we evaluated our why, and we started to make a few improvements. We said we will protect the customer who has been with us, and we will continue to make sure we're solving for them. We will evaluate our ability to attract more customers with both our private brands and national brand assortment. And so when we looked at our private brands, we had work we needed to do. The brands didn't necessarily stand for all that we wanted, or we didn't have the clarity or the continuity of the brands that we did have. And so you will have seen some of our brands like Free Assembly and Scoop, which are designed by Brandon Maxwell. You also may have seen No Boundaries, which is a brand that we've had for years. It's a $2 billion brand, but it didn't have an identity. So the way we've worked on our private brands is we've been really thoughtful about how do we have continuity? And that started with, we have to have a brand team. And so we have in-house designers and an in-house private brand team that is focused on making sure that our brand stands for what we say it stands for, it shows up in the right way, and that we create quality products at a value. And so that's the evolution of what you've seen us do in our private brands. In addition to that, it helps us attract national brands. And the assortment that you see in our remodels today reflects our ability to do both of those things. So when we think about customers, there are cohorts of customers who, if they aren't shopping with us, we try to better understand why they're not shopping with us. We make the improvements that we need to make, whether it's the quality of the assortment, the range of the assortment that we offer, and the trends that are important to them. Maybe if I gave you another example in food, which is a huge business, and we've got a lot of private brands there, but what we identified is customers want culinary treats in their food or experiences in their food. They want made without. They want plant-based. And so We haven't created a private brand in food in over 20 years. But when we looked at those trends, we looked at what customers wanted, we knew that we could create a solution that would give them the best of an assortment from around the world. And so we created Better Goods. It's an incredible brand. It hits both, culinary, made without, and plant-based. That is what the assortment includes. And it is an assortment that has 400 items across multiple categories in the store, and 70% of it is less than $5. And so it was important to us to hit the trends, to make quality products and give customers a value. And so I hope that people see that as we start with a customer, and when we do that, we make great products for them that they will love. I think it's important to know that we're an and company. We are execution and we're innovation. We are people-led and we're tech-powered. We are really focused on quality and value. And I don't think our teams think about segmenting customers. We want to give value to everyone. And we want to make sure that the access we give is available to anyone who wants to purchase the products that we have. And so we think that value extends to everyone. And we want to create things when we're working on our own brands or when we're negotiating with suppliers. We don't separate who we're serving. We do want to know what customers want and what trends there are and if we're missing anyone. But when we create products, we want as many people as possible to get access to those products.
Yeah, definitely. And I know that especially for low-income consumers, it's been a rough couple of months, especially with SNAP benefits being delayed payments and things like that, right? And I know that the company has said that it is very committed to supporting these consumers through this tough time. So would you share a little bit about kind of how Walmart is doing that, is making sure that these core low-income consumers that might be having a hard time now are getting what they need?
The moment a customer has challenges or we have to think about how to solve problems on their behalf, it's a whole team fight. And so we will make sure across our business that we're finding ways to serve them. And so when I think about the most recent challenges customers will have had, we knew that those things would be challenging. And so what we tried to do is make sure we gave visibility to all the value that already existed at Walmart. And so maybe on our website, if you were accustomed to shopping there or weren't, and you came to our site, value was loud and clear. It was, we consolidated price points. We pulled together meals where you could feed a family for a certain amount of money if you had only a certain amount of money to spend. And so when I talk about curation, it happens everywhere, not just in our assortment, but we pull things together for ease of shopping for customers. We did that on our site, we did that in our stores, and we tried to make sure that everyone knew that if customers needed solutions, that Walmart was a place that they could go.
Yeah. And actually, to the point of the website, I think it's really interesting because I think many readers or people who are thinking about Walmart think of its biggest competitors as other retailers, right? Like Target, Costco. But actually, one of your biggest competitors is Amazon, right? I mean, you're kind of increasingly building up your tech capabilities and your e-commerce capabilities so that you're sort of like now in direct competition with an Amazon. So I'd love to hear a little bit about that. You know, for the past 10 years, I've been reading about all of the advancements that Walmart has been incorporating into its website. Tell me a little bit about what the e-commerce experience is like now for your customers.
I'd say we're making advancements in the spirit of being where the customer is. And I'd say if I think about where we start, is back to having the right assortment at the right price. We're looking at what customers want in our assortment and do we have it? That's the first step. If we have it, is it easy to shop at a great value? And then give customers experience with how to make choices within the site with things like our AI assistant, Sparky, on our website, that you get the opportunity to type in if you're searching for. I had someone say to me, can I use Sparky for, I have a 5-year-old who's having a birthday and she loves robots. And you get Sparky to help look across the site and give you options on how to find gifts for your daughter who might love robots for her birthday, how to build the whole birthday party if you want a party that is robot focused, and have the opportunity.
We've all been there. We've all been there.
You're that odd solution. You don't really know how to find all of it, but AI is helping us, specifically with Sparky, give customers more options. And, as long as I've been in merchandising, have always said customers never come to you for the single thing. And if they do, you want to make sure if they need the other things that you make it easy for them to get access to those. So when we think about customers shopping with us, we think about the fact that they may be coming in on a weekly trip for essentials. They may be having a life moment where they've gotten a new puppy. They may be celebrating a milestone, or they might just need a new red lipstick. And in any case, we want to make sure that across our assortment, we can give them access to those things and that we're thinking about them in a way that gets to how do we serve customers and how do we make sure that however they want to shop with us, they get the products that they want and need and they get them fast. Maybe you've seen the latest data points as we've talked about the ability to go fast. If customers want something fast, and increasingly we're seeing customers ask for fast delivery. And so most recently this year, we have gotten to the point where we can serve 95% of America in 3 hours or less.
Wow. And that's because your stores serve as a kind of warehouse hub? Is that how you're able to do it so quickly?
Well, back to my point earlier, it's an and, right? We use our full network to get products to customers, whether it's in one of our fulfillment centers or one of our stores. We're making sure that we use all of our assets. If customers want things fast, we will get it to them fast.
I see that as kind of a really good competitor to Amazon Prime. And we know that Amazon in general targets a higher income customer. For Walmart, are you seeing that wealthier customers are more attracted to your online offerings, or is it sort of across the spectrum of consumers that are interested in shopping online now?
Oh, I think everybody shops online. And I think the fact is the reason why we need more assortment and the reason why we need speed is because customers are online and customers are shopping regularly and they are looking across multiple retailers. And so the reality is if you want to be where the customer is, everyone is shopping online and looking for opportunities to get the products they want. And the customer base that we see most frequently shopping with us, meaning spending the most and spending most frequently, is our Walmart Plus members. They shop frequently, they spend more, they have tons of fast delivery, and then we offer them, obviously, services so that we make sure that that speed of delivery is available to them.
Well, and there's another thing that I've been tracking at Walmart, which is that you're really investing in American suppliers. And I thought this was really interesting. I did a big story earlier in the year about Walmart's partnership with American Giant, which is a brand that Fast Company has been tracking for the beginning. So for people who aren't aware, American Giant is a company that launched about 10 years ago with this kind of crazy dream of making clothing end to end in America. So all the way from the cotton to the mills that produce the fabric, all the way to the cutting and sewing. And that was kind of a very difficult thing to do in America because a lot of the manufacturing to make clothing has been offshored. And so American Giant has slowly been trying to build this brand, but then it decided to reach out to Walmart to create a collection of t-shirts here in America. And Walmart said yes. And so I got to go and track the entire supply chain in America that now Walmart is using to create these t-shirts. I mean, tell me about something like that. That is a way for Walmart to use its scale and its power in the market to, sort of support American manufacturing. Why did you decide to do something like that?
2/3 of what we sell is made, grown, or assembled in the United States. And so it is largely obviously what we do, and the opportunity to extend that through things like Open Call. All of those, maybe I didn't say it, Open Call is about products made in the United States. And we've had that
interesting.
That annual event for over 10 years. And companies who make products in the US come and pitch to the teams, and there are full day meetings of pitches and meetings on education on how to work with us. And so I think it is core to who we are and what we do to sell American-made products.
And how does that process work kind of on a granular level? Because, when I was speaking with American Giant and speaking to these suppliers, it takes time for an industry that is still sort of growing to reach the kind of scale that Walmart requires, right? So is this just about sort of like gradually increasing your order size little by little? How do you help them grow their manufacturing business?
Well, I think that's important regardless of the manufacturers, to start where you should start, find synergies and create efficiencies, and then continue to scale from there. And so a lot of people, big manufacturers, go to all stores because they have a long history of working in that way, and they sell to a lot of other companies. And for small suppliers or for people manufacturing in the US, I think it's important to start where you should start. And I think our team does a good job of identifying where those starting places are. Now, you'll still be in the number of stores that's the size of a whole chain of another business, or you can start digitally on our site or in our own assortment or in our marketplace. And so I think we have a number of ways to serve customers with products, and we can utilize the relationships that we build in things like Open Call for American-made products in a way that not only helps us serve customers, but also helps build a business and help to sustain a business over time.
Yeah, as a fashion writer, I think the idea of bringing American manufacturing back to the clothing industry here in the US is really exciting. And it really seems like having a Walmart interested in that really changed the game, right? For many of these suppliers that had felt like, we really need to get to some scale for this to be a feasible business for us. So I just have two more questions. So one has to do with the fact that actually many people think of Walmart as a big box store that sells everything. But as I was digging into the company, it's really, I think many people should really think of it as the biggest grocer in America, because that's what it is, right? 60% of groceries in America are purchased at Walmart. So tell me a little bit about that. I mean, it seems like across the entire socioeconomic spectrum, having Walmart be a local grocer is kind of key to the success of Walmart. Is that true? Do you think of yourself as a company that can sort of bring in customers week after week because they're coming to you for groceries, and then you can introduce them to these other products?
I think what we're most known for is grocery. And I think it is the frequency of those trips mean more people come to us more regularly for grocery. What we see now is that is extending with our e-commerce business and our assortment across general merchandise, across the fashion businesses. Increasingly, people aren't only coming for grocery. It's back to that we're an and company. We are local and we are national. We are in communities and we are everywhere. And so I think the idea of us being singularly anything, if you've seen the marketing campaign we have on Who Knew, it is essentially built to create the awareness that we are not only what you think or thought we are all of these other things. We are in your neighborhood and we are all over the country. You can come to us or we can come to you. We have all the things you've known you've loved, and we have things you didn't even know that we had access to and we're giving you access to. So I think Who Knew is a great campaign for helping people understand how Walmart has evolved and changed and where we are today. I find myself so many times saying to people will say, well, Walmart doesn't have it. I went to the store and I didn't see it. And I pick up my phone every single time and I say, this is our largest store. Did you look here? And people who've gotten that from me once or twice try to warn the people around them, not to say that it's not in the store because they know what I'm going to say, but I just feel like I'm creating more advocates for, we have a very large store and it is wherever you are if you carry your phone. And we have very stores within 10 miles of 90% of America. If you need that local item that maybe is in your community or sourced from your community, we'll have those too.
It sounds like Walmart has been working on so many aspects of the business for a long time, from the e-commerce to the product selection. And now part of the challenge is just getting people to know that it has all of these capabilities. Is that right?
Yeah, I think it is. We will continuously improve. We won't stop working on assortment and price and experience and all of that with the intent to build trust with customers. And in addition to that, build awareness that Walmart's an and brand. And we likely have all the things that you want. You just have to check.
Yeah. Well, my final question is about the in-store experience. From the start, it made a lot of sense that Walmart was always kind of a no-frills shopping experience because the focus was on doing your shopping for the week, getting low prices. But in order to attract customers who may be used to a more elaborate, a more sort of like curated shopping experience, it sounds like you're really sort of working to bring those customers into some stores that have been sort of renovated. Tell me about that. Like, what are you doing to make the in-store experience more palatable to wealthier consumers without making lower income consumers feel like, Walmart has totally changed?
Our remodel program is essentially designed to, one, give the product life, to make sure that customers get access and visibility to the products that we sell. The number of people who in my family and otherwise come and shop stores that have been remodeled tell me all the things that aren't in their store. And they are, but they don't experience them in the same way. So I'd say we're improving the experience customers can have with visibility to the product. If you think about how we've laid out fashion, you can't miss that we have a fashion department. You can't miss when you walk in the door the beautiful produce that you see when you come in. If you come in on the general merchandise side of the store, you're either going to see what season it is and you're going to know right away that you need to be shopping for Christmas, or you will see beauty up front and you'll see it in a way that you haven't experienced it before. So I'd say we're creating more efficiency in the layout for our store associates, and we're opening up an opportunity for customers to experience all of the products that we have.
Yeah, and I've seen that in some stores, it's a very different experience than what maybe some people think of as a Walmart store. There are these mannequins that are very colorful. Things are sort of displayed in a very inviting way. Is your goal to have that kind of experience across your whole footprint? Or is that going to be sort of something that you do in particular markets?
Well, we have a remodel program where we do over 600 stores every year. We're about 3 years into that program. So there are a number of stores across the United States that already have remodels. And then we have a consistent strategy to continue to elevate that inspired shopping experience for customers. And that is back to, we think about what customers want. And when we think about categories, if you think about fashion, it shouldn't look and feel like, Denise would say, like you're buying tomatoes. It should look like and feel like you're buying fashion. In the same way that when you go into electronics and you experience Sonos, you should experience it how you'd want to experience Sonos in a retail environment. And so what you see is us, one, giving the inspired shopping experience. At the same time, it's what customers expect. And we want to make sure that it is not a barrier for them to shop with us because we haven't given them those experiences. So you'll continue to see us make sure that we give as many customers as possible that experience. And I'd say the same thing is happening on our app, is we continue to improve the experience so customers can have an inspired shopping experience with us, whether they shop us in stores or online.
Latrice, I think it's so beautiful that you started as a little girl.
I did.
Displaying these products for your teddy bears and then, then very aggressively ringing them up, because it sounds like that's basically what you're doing now. You're displaying products, you're like curating products. And this time it's not for teddy bears, it's for real live human beings. So what a journey you've been on.
Yeah, I love people. And
Yeah.
they give you a lot more feedback than the teddy bears did, that's for sure.
Yeah, their feedback cards are better filled out.
For sure.
Well, thank you so much, Latrice, for taking the time to chat with us.
Absolutely.
And it's just a fascinating moment for Walmart. So I'm excited to see how the company continues to evolve.
Thank you.
Okay, we're back with Ainsley, and it's time to wrap up the show with Keeping Tabs. This is where each one of us shares a story, trend, or piece of pop culture we're following right now. And Ainsley, since you're our guest, what are you keeping tabs on?
I am keeping tabs on this absolutely wild story. If you are in the fintech world, you have definitely heard about this past week, but I think it's interesting to other folks as well. A guy who writes a newsletter called Fintech Business Weekly published this insane investigation into Contigo. It was a Y Combinator startup that essentially it appears that the whole business model was evading sanctions against Venezuela. And the company appears to have ties to Maduro's son. And it also partnered with many leading financial institutions. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think we can have a good conversation about whether those sanctions were harmful to everyday Venezuelans and who have banking needs. At the end of the day, the company was just essentially one giant workaround. And not only was the reporting fantastic by this guy, Jason McCullough, but also you got to read on X, the replies. The company basically went apeshit. They started anyone who shared the piece.
Like on main, from the Contigo.
They would respond and be what is wrong with you? How dare you share this story? You are betraying us, sort of stuff, and threatening legal action.
No.
Just absolutely wild, sort of like a giant, we're just going to tell everyone we're guilty and make it very clear. So anyway, it's definitely worth checking out. It's a long read. It's, I think, over 5,000 words, but meticulous reporting.
That's wild. That's crazy.
It's truly, truly insane. Yeah, I hope it breaks free of the fintech bubble because it's a very good story.
What a sad list of publications you have to keep track of on your beat, Ainsley.
Yeah, I'm just grateful that I still haven't had to go to, there's a giant fintech conference in Vegas, Money 2020. And I've
Sounds like a hoot.
Yeah.
You did try to get into the All In Summit.
I did. I did apply, I think. And I think maybe, did we talk about last time or another time about the Vanity Fair
a little
story?
while ago, yeah.
Who was someone who did get in. Did not reveal what she said in her application. But yeah.
Well, yeah. A little dubious. This is some
yeah.
classic gonzo journalism.
Yeah, I love a little gonzo, though. I mean, it's a great read, so.
It is a great read. Liz, what are you keeping tabs on?
Okay, so I'm keeping tabs on how AI can help us raise our children because I have found it very, very useful recently. So I have two kids, Ella, who's this perfect child. She was very well behaved. And then for my second child, I got this completely crazy, completely defiant, difficult child. In fact, when we're driving in the car, she's often like, "Mommy, I'm a wild girl." And so that's what she is, right? She's self-identifying at the age of, 4 as this defiant, crazy child. So I was at my wit's end. So what I did was I asked ChatGPT to train itself on all of Dr. Becky Kennedy's work. So The Good Inside.
Love Dr. Becky.
Yeah, she's great.
She's on the pod.
She's amazing, right? And so I asked it to train itself on her book as well as other materials she shared on social media. And so now ChatGPT has a relationship with my child, Lily. And so anytime Lily is up to no good, she's stealing a cookie, she's melting down. Right now, she's having a lot of trouble going to sleep without milk. We're trying to take, drinking milk off the table.
Me both.
I know it's tough. It's really hard. I can, I'll put you in the system too, Josh, and then we can figure out a plan. And then it spits out a step-by-step guide. And so I'm there sitting with Lily, my phone in one hand, just reading the script, and it works. Every time it works. She's it totally addresses all of these issues. So anyway, part of me is a little, this seems a little dystopian, right? I acknowledge that. But on another level, it's actually really helpful, right? I'm using this, this parenting expert who, actually has a lot of really great tips and applying it very specifically to anyway, I don't know. Ainsley, your mom,
What do you think about that?
No, it's funny. It hasn't occurred to me to like train it specifically, but I could see that being really useful, like to have a sort of like parenting coach that's sort of customized to you. I mean, that certainly seems like much better parenting than, I feel like, did you see this story? I think it was in the New York Times about the little girl in China who went viral because of like a video where she was sobbing after her AI friend broke.
Oh,
it's sort of distressing.
Yeah.
And like, they interviewed the parents. The parents have some conflicted feelings about it, but, kids are building these like direct relationships with these sort of chatbot toys. And like that to me, like, I don't know. Again, I feel old. I guess that's the theme of today. But I mean, my kids talk to their stuffed animals all the time and like create interior lives for them and stuff. And well, my son, I guess, actually he keeps adding to his stuffed animal collection because he's trying to turn it into an army. So maybe dystopian in a different way. But it's a very... I don't know. I feel like there are no rules. And then whatever like rules you create, your kid goes to like someone else's house or even at school. And it's like they're doing the thing you were like, we're never going to do that. So it's very strange right now,
But for me, it was really important to have like a single parenting. So not that she's that special. I mean, we love Dr. Becky. She's amazing. But I just felt like it would be confusing if it was just pulling from all possible parenting methodologies. I wanted it to just be consistent, right? So every time I'm interacting with it, it's so anyway, it's been working really well. We'll see. This is like an experiment.
You should try it with the fuck around and find out style of parenting.
We would totally confuse. I'll have a third child and then try it. But I don't know. We're gonna see, like, in like 20 years from now, like
I'm learning a lot right now.
How these kids turn out. Yaz, I hope she's listening right now. We're gonna give me her own.
Yeah.
I'm really a fan of fuck around and find out, but I would not necessarily recommend it for a 1-month-old.
Yes,
So,
indeed.
I mean, it's interesting, just like the applications. Like so much comes down to, because essentially AI is it's a huge, large scale pattern generator. It's not a real person. Like that's not something that it is yet, I guess. So it's like, it always strikes me that like the problems almost without fail just run into when people treat AI as if it's a person.
Right.
Versus a large scale pattern generator. It's really good at summarizing information that you feed into it. Like I use Notebook LM quite a bit. And you have to check things, but like, here are the sources I want you to summarize them for me, and then fact check on yourself. It's really good at that. What it's not going to be really good at is being your child's friend.
Yeah, indeed.
Or your friend, or your girlfriend.
Damn it.
Anyways. I got two things real quick. One, did either of you see the Eric Adams rug poll? Ainsley, I feel like this is right up your alley. The NYC token.
Didn't he like wheel out a garbage can or like there was like some
No, what is this? What is this?
So Eric Adams launched a crypto meme coin called NYC token.
Of course he did.
And then promptly, one of the quickest rug polls I've ever seen, by the way. It was like within like 5 hours or a little bit less. So the meme coin called NYC token shot up to about 580 million in value, and then an account connected to the deployer withdrew $2.5 million from the account, and then it quickly plummeted. Classic rug pull architecture. But just in true Eric Adams fashion, the rollout of this and the pageantry of it was just spectacular. He made an announcement and also was saying that like this token, proceeds from this token was going to go to combat anti-Semitism and anti-American sentiment, which is wild to launch a meme coin to do that. Anyways, Eric Adams is just the gift that keeps on giving.
And now he's got time on his hands, right? What do you think he's going to do with it?
Well, he's spending a lot of time in Dubai. It's the first thing he did, and then tweeting at Andy Cohen because they're in a beef of some sort. It's a whole thing. And then my second keeping tabs is the Golden Globes was this past weekend, and they gave out their first podcast award, which went to Amy Poehler. MIC was snubbed again for the award.
How could they?
As an NPR.
It was no NPR Up First was nominated. It was like
yes, no, but they didn't she
Call Her
call them
Daddy.
out in her speech?
She
like,
did.
for
She
not
did.
winning? Yeah.
Well, because it's basically was like, I think there were 6 nominees. It was mostly like celebrity. It was Smartless. It was Call Her Daddy. It was Good Hang. A few, I think, Mel Robbins podcasts. It was basically like celebrity hosted podcasts, and then NPR's Up First. And it just doesn't make any sense. I don't think it's a great representation of the forum. The ones that were like celebrities who it's like the 6th thing that they do and are kind of just like, hey, what's up on the podcast? But I get why they did it. Like, it's a good thing that podcasts are being represented with the rest of media, because it is. But it's also just like, it's ill-conceived to just do a best podcast award, because that would basically be like you split up the rest of awards for media, and like podcasts encompass as wide of a variety of types of shows as like filmed media. Like, you're not nominating TV and documentary and movies in the same categories. That's basically what exists in podcasting. Like, having Up First, a daily news program, nominated alongside celebrity hosted entertainment shows. So here's my pitch for Golden Globes to fix it. Just make it 3 podcast categories. Do best informational program, that can be your news and your documentary style programs, best entertainment or variety show podcast, and then I think you can do a category that's like best experimental or something like that. I think you could even get away with 2.
I thought you were going to have the last one be like best like ways to like optimize and experiment on yourself.
Best grifter podcast.
Yeah.
Mel Robbins would win every single year.
Andrew Huberman, I thought.
Andrew, the Huberman Lab.
Yeah,
that's like supplement promo podcast. Yeah.
Tim Ferriss.
Well, it was interesting though, like even among those podcasts, like I was curious about why they picked her. I mean, I think it's a fun podcast. I've enjoyed it. But I don't know. Like it's kind of surprised me how, it's just a run of the mill celebrity podcast, right? Like she doesn't.
Well, like what's the criteria for best?
Yeah, totally.
You know what I mean? Like
there's
these
nothing original about the podcast in any way, for instance. Like if that was, one of the criteria.
No, and that's kind of like podcasts are basically like in some representation, like an evolution of the form of daytime talk shows and cable news and stuff like that. There's a lot of that are just like in that format. And then there's some other ones that I think do some like really interesting things with the form. So it's like you have to figure out like, okay, why do we have a podcast category? Is this a business success award? Is this like huge audience, bringing in lots of stuff, we're awarding that? That's great, but make that clear. If we're like talking about these as like artistic pursuits, it's not going to be Good Hang with Amy Poehler.
Yeah, indeed. Yeah. And I mean,
if you're just approaching it like, oh, we just want comedy, entertainment, and variety podcasts, then it makes sense. And Amy Poehler is really about like, does she have good guests? Is it funny? Is it engaging? Stuff like that.
Yeah.
I will say it was the first year I've ever seen, I think essentially every mom I know who lives in the suburbs shared a clip from Amy Poehler's podcast at some point over the past year. It's like, we're all driving around listening to this.
Yeah, it's like a counter to like the Bro World podcast, right? It's like the menopausal universe that she's sort of like, she's like standing up for menopausal women everywhere.
Yes, without it being about like, even though my face doesn't move, I stopped Botox. I don't need another one of those.
Yeah, totally.
Well, I think that's a good place to end it. I'm still pissed off that we weren't nominated. It's fine. There's always next year Hollywood Foreign Press Association. So I'll be. This is the episode we're submitting right now.
Just go big, Josh. We need an Oscar. You know, like
I will make an Oscar bait episode of this podcast.
Do it.
God, gotta do some sort of period piece MIC.
Ooh, period piece MIC.
Well, that's always the back door. You just got to get nominated for costumes. Right?
Yeah. No, so we can do that. We can make that happen. We can do that.
If we just show up in full like neoclassical regalia.
I will do that for you, Josh, if you need me to.
Oh my God. We can get
I'll have a fascinator on, we'll make it directly
exactly. Can we get Yorgos Lanthimos to direct an episode?
100%. Yeah.
Oh my God. All right, we gotta get out of this. Ainsley, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me, guys.
Bye.
That's all for our show today. Our show is produced by Blake Odom, Sam Gebauer, Hawa Tori, and Mariam Kiparoitze. Editing by Matt Toder, mix and sound design by Tad Wadhams and Nicholas Torres, and our executive producer is me. Remember again to subscribe, rate, and review, and we'll see you next week.